Have you ever wondered how the Eastern Bloc managed to erect cities of identical apartments in a matter of years? Picture this, the aftermath of World War II. Europe lay in ruins, with millions of displaced people in desperate need of housing. The solution? Prefabrication. Prefabrication, or prefab for short, is the practice of assembling parts of a structure in a factory before shipping them to the construction site. Think of it like a giant jigsaw puzzle, only instead of a picture, you're putting together a building. This method was not entirely new. In fact, it can be traced back to the 19th century. But it was during the mid-20th century, in the wake of World War II, that prefab truly came into its own. In the devastated cities of the Eastern Bloc, the need for swift, affordable housing solutions was dire. Traditional construction methods were time-consuming and costly. They simply couldn't keep pace with the demands of a population in crisis. Enter prefabricated flats. These flats, often referred to as panel buildings, were mass-produced in factories. Each flat was made up of large precast concrete slabs or panels. These panels were then transported to the construction site and assembled into multi-story apartment blocks. It was a process akin to building with Lego blocks on a grand scale. The Eastern Bloc governments embraced this method wholeheartedly. It offered a quick, cost-effective solution to the housing crisis. More than that, it aligned perfectly with their socio-political ideologies. The uniformity of the flats reflected the principle of equality. The speed and efficiency of their construction embodied the ideals of industrial progress and modernization. But like any solution, prefabrication had its drawbacks. The uniformity that was initially celebrated soon gave rise to criticisms of monotony and soullessness. The quality of the flats was often questionable, as corners were cut in the race to meet housing demands. But in those early days, the need for shelter overshadowed these concerns. Thus began the era of prefabricated flats, a solution born out of dire necessity. So, how exactly were these massive structures assembled in such a short span of time? Let's take a journey into the fascinating process of prefabrication. The heart of this process lay in the factories, where large components of these buildings were produced, much like an automobile assembly line. These factories were the backbone of the prefabrication industry, churning out walls, floors, and ceilings with precision and consistency. Imagine a place where homes were not built, but manufactured, with each component produced to exact specifications. Once these components were ready, they were transported to the construction site, where they were assembled with a speed and efficiency that traditional construction methods could only dream of. It was like putting together a giant jigsaw puzzle, with each piece designed to fit perfectly into its designated spot. The walls, floors, and ceilings were hoisted into place using cranes, and then fastened together to create a solid, sturdy structure. It was a dance of machinery and manpower, a symphony of construction that was as impressive as it was efficient. But it wasn't just about speed. Prefabrication also allowed for a level of standardization that was previously unheard of in the construction industry. Because the components were produced in factories, they could be made to exact specifications, ensuring a high level of quality and consistency. This standardization also made it easier to plan and design these buildings, as architects and engineers knew exactly what they were working with. And let's not forget about the cost. Because of the economies of scale and the efficiency of the process, prefabricated buildings were significantly cheaper to produce than their traditionally built counterparts. This made them an attractive option for governments and developers looking to provide affordable housing on a large scale. So there you have it, a process that revolutionized the construction industry, changing the way we think about building homes. It was a process that was fast, efficient, and cost-effective. It was a process that brought homes to millions of people who might not otherwise have been able to afford them. It was like an assembly line for homes, churning out buildings at an unprecedented rate. But what was it like to live in these box-like structures, you may wonder? Living in prefabricated flats was a unique experience, to say the least. Imagine waking up every day in a room that looks exactly like thousands of others. The layout, the walls, the windows, all identical. It didn't just feel like living in a box, it was living in a box. A box replicated endlessly across the Eastern Bloc. The lack of individuality was palpable. Every family had the same kitchen, the same living room, the same balcony. You could walk into any neighbor's flat and know exactly where everything was. It was as if life had been standardized, reduced to a template that everyone followed. Privacy, too, was a scarce commodity. Thin walls and close quarters meant that your neighbors knew more about your life than you might have liked. Every argument, every celebration, every late-night TV show was a shared experience. In a sense, you were never really alone. But it wasn't all bleak. Living in such close proximity also fostered a sense of community. Neighbors weren't just people living next door, they were almost like extended family. Children grew up together, adults shared their joys and sorrows, and the elderly found companionship in each other. It was a microcosm of society, a reflection of the socialist ideal of collective living. There were practical advantages too. The buildings were affordable and easy to maintain. They offered a solution to the housing crisis that plagued many Eastern Bloc countries after the Second World War. For many families, they provided a fresh start, a place to call their own. Of course, there were disadvantages as well. The buildings were often poorly insulated, making them cold in the winter and hot in the summer. And the lack of personal space could be stifling. Despite these flaws, these flats became home to millions of people across the Eastern Bloc. They were more than just boxes. They were communities, they were memories, they were history encapsulated in concrete. Despite their flaws, these flats became home to millions of people across the Eastern Bloc. But who were the minds behind these massive housing projects? As we delve deeper into the architectural phenomenon of the Eastern Bloc's prefabricated flats, it's time to turn our attention to the architects and engineers whose vision and skill birthed these towering edifices. These were not just builders, they were problem solvers, innovators, idealists. They had a vision of a modern society where everyone could have a home, and they were determined to make that vision a reality. The challenge was immense. They had to design housing that was affordable, efficient, and capable of accommodating large populations, all while working within the constraints of limited resources and technologies. Their solution? Prefabrication. The concept was simple but revolutionary. By designing homes to be built in factories and then assembled on site, they could drastically reduce construction costs and time. But it was far from easy. Each flat had to be meticulously planned and engineered, with every component precisely designed to fit together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Among these innovative architects, we find names like Oscar Hansen and Jerzy Soltan, who championed the idea of open-form architecture, a design philosophy that prioritized flexibility and adaptability. They believed that architecture should serve people, not the other way around, and their designs reflected this belief. For these architects and engineers, their work was more than just a job. It was a mission. They were driven by a deep commitment to social equality, a belief that everyone deserved a decent place to live, regardless of their income or social status. They saw prefabrication as a vehicle for social change, a way to make good housing accessible to all. Their work was not without its critics. Some saw their designs as impersonal, even dehumanizing. But for all their flaws, these prefabricated flats represented a bold experiment in social engineering, a tangible expression of the ideal of housing for all. These architects and engineers were the unsung heroes of the Eastern Bloc's housing revolution. They dared to dream big, to challenge the status quo, and in doing so, they left an indelible mark on the urban landscape of the Eastern Bloc. So what happened to these prefabricated flats, and what is their legacy today? The story of the prefabricated flats doesn't end with the fall of the Eastern Bloc. These monolithic structures, once symbols of a utopian future, have weathered the test of time and continue to dominate the skylines of many Eastern European cities. Today, they stand as poignant reminders of a bygone era, their faded facades telling tales of the past, while their interiors adapt to modern living. Many of these buildings have undergone extensive refurbishment efforts. The once uniform and drab dwellings have been transformed into vibrant and diverse communities. Balconies, once filled with laundry lines and bicycles, now bloom with gardens. Walls, which were once stark and gray, now burst with color, adorned with murals that reflect the spirit of the residents. However, not all flats were lucky enough to receive a makeover. Many are slated for demolition, their useful lives deemed over. But even in their destruction, they leave behind a profound legacy. The rubble of these buildings, the shattered concrete and twisted steel, are recycled and repurposed, making way for new structures that carry the echoes of their predecessors. The cultural and historical significance of these flats cannot be overstated. They have become the backdrop to countless stories, from the mundane to the extraordinary. They have witnessed the ebb and flow of life, the joys and sorrows of their inhabitants, and the rise and fall of a political ideology. More than just buildings, these flats have played a crucial role in shaping the identity of the Eastern Bloc. They are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reflection of the hopes and dreams of a generation. They speak of a time when the promise of a better tomorrow was enough to build a whole world from scratch. The prefabricated flats of the Eastern Bloc, for better or worse, are a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability in the face of adversity.